Well, thank you everyone for letting us come and speak to you today. So Jennifer Wilson, who I know many of you know, is here, and we're kind of looking at this building and working on several projects with several of you. And one of the things when we look at a building this old, or something that I like to do, is what I call building archaeology. So let's try to understand as much as we can about the original building, so we have and can make some really good informed decisions moving forward, because let's be honest, we don't build things quite like this anymore. And the building overall has been, I think, really well maintained over the years for as old as it is. So really today, I just want to present some items and some resources that we've been using, and some of the information that we've found that actually are available for free. So when we're working on a renovation project like this, or restoration project, where are the original drawings? Because those are like the best thing to have. We don't have any. That's one of the unfortunate things about this building, is we do not have the original drawings that were put together from 1910 that had all the details for this building. So that makes this pretty complicated in terms of what's original. If we're trying to restore details back to kind of what the original details were, or the spaces. So what do you do? Well, there's a couple of methods that we have in terms of trying to figure out what the original spaces and details were for this building. One is to look at uh, the firm that designed this building, look at some other buildings around Springfield that we have as physical evidence. Firm of Miller, Opel, and Torbett was the firm of record that designed this building. You can see on the list there that there's several buildings that are still around, some over at Drury, including Burnham Hall, Landers Theater, several churches, and then one that's not on this list but was built about exactly the same time was the YMCA building downtown that was just recently sold. So sometimes going and looking at these buildings can provide us with some really good evidence in terms of original details, how things were drawn, things like that. The specific person, though, that was involved in your building was a guy named Archibald Torbett. He was born in Mexico, Missouri, and he was educated through a correspondence course. This was before the time where we had a state school for architecture or any type of engineering. So he pretty much learned everything via correspondence. And later on, when he joined the firm of Miller and Opel in 1906, and he later would leave Springfield in 1918 to join another architecture firm out of St. Louis that did other courthouse and public works projects. He continued practicing even when he retired to Seattle, and he passed away in 1958. But he was the main architect that did the majority of work on this building with the contractor and with the county officials. The other source that we have found a lot of really great information, since some of this work that we're doing is involving the interiors, is from a Greene County Library resource called From the Darkroom. These are all scanned in black and white images from the Springfield News Leader, Leader and Press, and several other editions that's free and that is searchable. And so what we have found has been some really great photos of original features of the building. So this photo was taken first floor corridor just in front of Justin's office. I think in the article it denoted that these were all disgruntled public officials or public members of the public wanting to argue their new tax rates. So so this is just so some things I guess don't always change. So but this was on the first floor corridor right in front of Justin's office. This is the former county commission chambers, which in 1950, based on a few of the plans we have, this would be right below us. In Shane's office, there was a partition that divided the room, kind of his main room, and this would have been taken right over in this corner. So we have 3 county commissioners, a couple members of the zoning board, and assuming that most of the other ceilings above the drop ceiling that should still be there, at least the detailing of like the cornice work and things like that. So the other thing about this is they would like shamelessly document trials and people that were on trial back in the day. So this was the Eldon Bagwell trial. This was taken up on the third floor corridor, kind of right in front of Kevin's office. Notice though, the dark line right next to the columns on the third floor corridor. Again, this is another awesome photo, someone coming right out of the bathroom. So one of the things we did find in looking at descriptions of the building early on was that one of the original plans for the interior corridors was that they were going to have a stone wainscoting around all public corridors of the building that would have been 4 feet high. So similar to when you walk down the stairwells, there's the marble that goes up so high. They were wanting to do that around all of the corridors, but they couldn't afford the $1 a square foot cost. So instead, that was taken out. And I'm assuming the way that they kind of did that aesthetically was they had this painted line around all the corridors to kind of delineate the height difference. So you see that in several photos. Even the previous one, it was really dark up on the third floor corridor. So little detailing things you notice in these photos that, a lot of the things in this one haven't changed much. So the doors are something also that was pretty interesting. So the doors in this building, other than the wood surrounds, they are all metal doors. So they are hollow metal. There's no wood within them. And the reason for that is at this time period, specifically in Missouri history, there were many buildings around the state that the danger of fire was a really big concern, especially with county records. So when this building was built, it was very important to the county officials that this would be a fireproof building. One of the reasons why you have like really solid concrete construction, you've got hollow clay brick in the walls that's used to separate for partitions. So they actually switched while this building was under construction from wood doors that had metal on them to just solid metal doors. So that's one reason why if you walk up and you tap on the doors, they're metal because that was switched. So those are original to the building's construction. And we were actually able to find through trade journals, which are routinely uploaded online for archiving purposes, these doors actually came from a company out of Kansas City. These are the actual details that they advertised for this particular company, Monarch Metal Company. And the highlight in yellow denotes that, if you want to see what these look like and you're interested in buying them, the Greene County Courthouse in Springfield has these installed. So details like this can be really helpful for future renovations. The biggest, I guess, aid to us, because we did not have original drawings in this building, is a newspaper article from the Leader and Press from March 16th, 1912. In that article, they did a room-by-room clockwise description of all the occupied floors of the building, including who the office holders were. The area I have zoomed in is kind of where IS is now, where the admin is, considering moving. So if we start down in this far corner next to the column, Prosecuting Attorney James H. Mason is to occupy a suite of 2 rooms, one 17 feet square and the other 10 by 20 directly west of the grand jury room. West of this suite, the Office of Public Administrator David Mays, which is 17 feet square. It connects with a larger room on the west, 23 feet long and 17 feet wide, used by the County Superintendent of Schools, J.R. Roberts. This room was originally designed for the probate court, but the plans later changed to allow light to penetrate the corridor. Bending on the southwest corner and starting across west, at the second floor, one comes to the small private office of Probate Judge G.G. Leidy, which occupies west end of the corridor. The office is partitioned off, but will be a partition of translucent glass through which light will enter the hallway. The office is 10 by 15 feet square in size. North of this is the probate courtroom, 30 feet long by 25 feet wide, east of which is a vault 12 by 30 provided with metal door. Between this and the northwest corner of the building are 2 rooms to be used as ladies' restrooms and toilet. The vault of Circuit Clerk S.A. Reed, 17 feet square, occupies the northwest corner east of this. Along the north side of the building is another office of the Circuit Clerk, 17 feet square. This connects on the east with the clerk's main office, 33 feet long by 17 feet wide. Private chambers of Judge Guy D. Kirby of Division 1 of the Circuit Court will be located east of the Circuit Clerk in room 18 feet long and 10 feet wide. So this is extremely helpful in terms of trying to figure out what the original layout was, what the original openings were, because if you start looking at the progression of the building over time, thankfully we have several of these that have been archived, you can start to see how 1912 to 1939, overall the space kind of remains the same. 1964, we have some changes involving kind of the hallway, adding storage space. And then 1972 to 2002, this particular space really starts to get kind of cut up, existing doors infilled, things like that. The thing that's really helpful about this is that when we start looking at, is there an opportunity, for instance, to remove some of the existing openings in some of the walls, particularly on the south end of the building, we can start to see that those were just infilled. So in theory, punching a new hole through any of the walls of this building is a pretty difficult task, where if we can just figure out where the original openings were that we can just reuse, this becomes really helpful and hopefully can save us some money. So again, kind of a different method for kind of trying to dissect where the original openings were versus what's there now. So one of the final things that recently we found, which is pretty interesting, is regarding the exterior carving of the building of the stone. Previously we assumed that there was an entire team of masons that laid all of the phoenix of this building, but an article in 1912 denoted that there was one specific mason that was in charge of carving most of the exterior features of the building. His name was C.M. Berglund, and used electrical compression drills to carve all of the exterior details, including those that are on the building, as well as those that were removed with the parapet when it was taken off in 1973. And recently, when we were looking at one of the pieces that's on the courthouse lawn that we saved from the parapet, we actually found that his mark was carved in the top of that. So, which was pretty common for masons to do, picking stones at the quarry. So, that's the piece that basically his mark is on. And then obviously for scale, that's where it came from. But something that I just do in my free time, because it's what I'm interested in. This guy was extremely talented. He was originally from Sweden. He came to the United States in 1891. He lived the majority of his life in Tulsa, but he worked all over the United States, worked in Chicago, New York. This is just one local example. This is the Pawnee County Courthouse in Oklahoma, and all of the exterior work on this building was carved by it's Conrad Berglund is his name, but just to show you kind of the skill of this guy, super talented. And I'm still trying to track down a photo of him. So if anyone is related to him, if you don't know, I'd like to find a photo of who this guy looks like. So this was not meant to be any sort of like a comprehensive history of the building. I could do one of those, but I really just wanted to show you some of the things that when we start researching buildings like this, that we try to find and aid us in projects. So any questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
Rumor has it there are creepy tunnels in the historic county courthouse. Do you have any mention?
What do you mean by creepy
I
tunnels?
don't know, that's just what they said.
I will say that one of the early accounts of talking about bringing materials and starting the project in 1910, the majority of the grading and the foundation work on the basement level was done by prisoners from the jail that was right next door. So I don't think I've ever heard anything about creepy tunnels, but
You might share with her how the air was brought in through the bottom of that. There's a big fan ring.
oh, I don't have the rendering, or I don't have the, see if I can do that
But
with.
that's kind of the leftover part of the underground that might be thinking this tunnels.
Yeah, I don't have an image of that. So you can't see this, but right next to where the column is, kind of imagine that the rest of the building is shown. If you ever are walking up the front entry steps over here, you'll notice that there are where the kind of the two doors are that have been infilled. Originally, the way that the ventilation system worked in the building was there was a fan below the rotunda in the basement, kind of in the rounded area. That fan would pull air in through the grates in the front of the building. The air would be heated through the boiler in the back. And then basically where you see all of the vents here and in the exterior corridor into the rotunda, that air would be pulled up and basically pulled out through the building. The air also would then be kind of removed from the building through the vents that are in the rotunda. The copper rotunda at the top of the building has small vent fans, basically, that air then would be pulled out. So early day air conditioning for the building. So
So you see the vents he's talking about behind the TV?
there.
Behind the screen. Oh.
So that might be the tunnels.
You'll notice them around the building now that you see that.
And the cavities behind those walls are, I mean, they're big enough that somebody could fit in them, but you'd drop 4 stories down. So, yes.
The basement is lower ceilings than all the rest. Is that just a structural reason for that?
Yes. So that's something also that recently we've discovered without having any existing drawings. Understanding what the wall construction is of this building has always been kind of challenging. There was a rumor that, solid concrete, it's really hard to drill through, all that. What we actually found, again, it was newspapers back in the day published everything. Whether you wanted to read it or not, they were going to publish it. And so we found that the basement foundation, because of the weight of the building, had to be solid concrete and preferably keep that as low as possible because of the weight of the building. Up above the foundation level, you had brick that basically came from Kansas, that was from a kiln in Kansas, and then obviously Phoenix marble from Ash Grove. So everything from the foundation level up on the exterior is several layers of brick with stone on the exterior. All the partitions in the building were hollow clay tile, which was for fire, which once you hit one of those in place, they crumble. But that's the main reason why the foundation or the basement level is so kind of low, is because of for strength. So
Also, there's electrical in the center of the rotunda. Was there electrical when the building was built, or was that afterward?
It was right at the time when things were transitioning over from kind of gas to electrical. So I believe this building did have electrical when it opened. So
It also had gas lights.
yes.
Part of it, so. Anybody else? Anything you ever wanted to know about the historic courthouse?
No,
The gas lights.
Specifically, the rumor is that they are currently in the hall, or they were in the hallway. If you walk down the hallway, you'll see like small little gas lines that are capped. Again, most of the interior photos that I have are from the 40s into the 50s. We do have some photos from like the 20s in different offices, but in terms of like the public corridors, we just didn't take photos of public spaces back then like that. So in terms of tracking down features and things like that for light fixtures, that is one of the things that can be kind of challenging.
Maybe since you have a few minutes left, talk about the window replacement and the little pieces that we have left.
You're putting me on the spot, Kevin. So,
The Think of things they would want to know.
I know, and I didn't even think to include photos of those. So trying to see if there's something to show here. So the windows of this building originally were double hung windows. So top pane, bottom pane, both would open for air circulation. These windows were replaced in, I think we found the early 80s is when the windows that are currently installed were put in place. And one of the things that was removed and was pretty common for most windows is where you have either stone or brick at the edge, you have a casing trim that basically covers up that gap. If you do like historic preservation tax credit projects, the State Historic Preservation Office thinks that windows and like window casing are like the sacred cow of all preservation things. That is the thing that they care about the most. So anytime that we can include details like that back, we do. We've been able to find on a couple of doors and windows in this building. So if you walk on the west entry doors, if you walk up the steps and the small narrow double doors that has the arch, next time you walk through those, look along the edge and you can actually see what the original casing profile was. It's a really simple detail that once that's added to the exterior, it dresses up the building, and it's something that is necessary. So once you have a large quantity of windows you're installing, including that casing, and getting it historically accurate, it just makes sense to do. So we've got a drawing of that. We've sent that to a couple of the window companies that we've been talking with about helping with details, and that's something that will be included when the new windows are installed. So, but yeah. Yes,
Do you work on, do you do this kind of research on other historic buildings
I do.
in Greene County, or?
I mean, I've done it all over. I'm originally from St. Joseph, Missouri. That's where I grew up. But I do it all over. We do a lot of work at College of the Ozarks. We've done that on a couple buildings down there that are older. So we do it kind of all over. So
Yes, we're very lucky to have Paden.
yes.
About what changes are coming to this building on our floor, the second floor here, what's coming up for us? Or what's in plan?
No.
When we talk about
Sure, you want to take that one?
I'm not taking that one.
Seven, take. So on the second floor of the commission, the IS is moving to the Public Safety Center. That project is out for bids. We'll have that in motion soon. The commission will move into their space. We're also looking at upgrading the restrooms on second and third floor. If you'll remember, we talked about a $19 million budget for all the projects we're gonna do, and we've kind of divided those up and parceled those out. We originally set aside $1 million for this, not including the assessor's work that you see going on down in the basement. That was funded separately. But is that kind of what you were looking for?
yes and no? I guess I was looking for maybe a little bit more detail of what the plan is, what it's gonna look like.
Okay.
When the plans are done on the second.
Well, we have a floor plan right now. But we're in the very early stages of design of that. So I hated to, I told Paden, be careful that we don't just lay out, this is the plan. And then when we actually build it, it looks different. Because there are things, and in the assessor's office, we did find, Brent found some arches down on the west side, and then found some termites, not quite as exciting, on the west side. We have some asbestos floor tile, we have some asbestos pipe. There are some things that will probably, as we get more into the details, will change. They have a nice floor plan laid out now that the commission has approved moving forward, but as we actually do the design with plumbing and HVAC and all of those things may change. So pretty soon we'll be able to give you that floor plan.
I'll add a little bit more to that. One of the goals that we want to do is,
I think it's nice to have people online.
um, obviously with the IS department in that space, it's very different than what it used to be like. So one of the goals is we want to try and kind of restore that space. So like the areas that have really low ceilings, we want to make sure that those ceilings are nice and tall. Some of the openings that I showed you that we have found that have been like just the openings are there, they've just been covered up, possibly opening those up so we have kind of the original like office doorway openings. So those are some kind of early on goals that we have that we think we can accommodate pretty easily.
Yeah.
So,
And you can even see in this room, you see the drop ceiling. Back in the day, before we had air conditioning, this ceiling went all the way up to the top of these windows. Where Conan is sitting, you can see it goes much higher. And up above that is the decorative part of the ceiling. And so adding air conditioning, adding, plumbing and all of that, it was simpler for them to just add it instead of working inside a ceiling that was completely plastered over. But then that also, these were very grand ceilings. Now, grand ceilings come with a price when you're trying to put in HVAC stuff, heat and cool the building. So we'll find that happy medium, we'll find that compromise, but raise these ceilings as tall as we can. And that is, it is really cool to see the old parts of the building when they're doing demolition, and it's kind of sad to put back a drop ceiling, but that's just the price of working in an old building. So hopefully they'll still have the grandeur of this old building. I love this building. There's not many places you could work and have this style. Think of the inefficiencies of the big rotunda. You wouldn't ever do a building like that where half of the space is actually not usable. But yeah,
Could they not do the exposed ductwork like they do in block instead of the drop ceiling?
Yeah.
And that way that would keep.
it's possible, except that you have a lot of the stuff for building the commercial size instead of residential, like you're talking about with lofts, is pretty big and pretty ugly.
The
So
price tag goes up considerably. We looked to do Brent's area and do spiral duct there, anything like that, and open up the ceiling. There's been so many alterations that they've damaged the ceiling above. And to put that all back to new was just a price tag we could absorb. That's the problem. Anything like that costs a lot of money. And to find a plaster person that actually do the work, since it's such an old trade. The last guy we had doing the ceilings here, he was 78 years old. So it's a lost trade. So it's very expensive if you find someone.
yeah, what he said. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Paden will be around for